Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a Pink Snow Camellia. This is Pink Snow Sasanqua Camellia, an evergreen shrub that gets beautiful light pink flowers in the fall and early winter. Like most camellias, pink snow can get quite big over time. It can end up 10, maybe even 15 feet in height, but it's pretty easy to control these Camellia Sasanquas lower than that. I've got one on the side of my house I've kept about 6 or 7 feet for almost 20 years now. Pink snow, like most Camellia Sasanquas, is best in zone 7 to 9. You could probably try this plant in 6B if you had a very protected space around a house, tucked up against a foundation. Like most camellias, pink snow is slow growing. We might only get 3 or 4 inches of growth out of these in a year, which is fantastic because it's a plant that's eventually going to get too large for most spaces. But it takes a very, very long time for that to happen. In terms of sun or shade, we're definitely going to want to lean toward part shade on camellias. Camellia Sasanquas can take more sun than Japanese camellias, but definitely not full sun. I think you could probably put a half a day sun on these either in the morning or late in the evening and be fine with that. Camellia japonicas would definitely need a little more shade than these. Because pink snow is going to end up so large, the best use for it really, if you were going to use it as a foundation plant, and that would probably be the best use for it in zone 6B or 7A, you'd have to put it on the corner of a foundation or along a wall that had no windows. It could also be a spalliate. A spalliate is a technique for basically making it flat against a structure, and it can actually be grown in some sort of trellis to accomplish that. It takes a while, it takes some patience, probably more patience than I have, honestly. The other use, if you're in zone 7B to 9, you can use these out in open space, and you can use it as a border between you and a neighbor or just a single specimen plant. This thing can be limbed up and tree formed or cut from the top and kept as a shrub. Of course, the flowering is the main feature with pink snow camellias. They're fantastic at it. They bloom at a time when almost nothing else is blooming. Almost everything else in your yard will have bloomed out when this plant gets started in late October into November, December, and January, depending on how cold it gets in early January as to whether the remaining buds survive. But this thing is absolutely fantastic. It's extremely showy, these light pink, and there's kind of a white and pink mixed in these flowers, and they show up from a very, very long way away. It's in November now, and we've got quite a few flowers open on this one, and you can see the additional buds. Hopefully we can see that on video, just how many and how long this thing is going to be blooming. It'll be blooming well into early January. In terms of planting pink snow camellias, there's a link in the description of this video for planting in soils that don't drain very well or clay-based soils, also one for sandy soils or soils that drain too well. I doubt you'll have an issue on camellias. They're very slow to root, but if you do pull it out of the container and it's extremely root bound, meaning the roots are matted together inside, make sure you pull at those pretty vigorously. Also, you could take a knife and cut from the top to bottom if it's an extremely matted root system on it. For the first 9 to 12 months, you're going to want to definitely keep a close eye on watering your camellia. Go and stick your finger maybe 2 inches down near the base of it and see if it actually needs water. And if it does, drown the entire space around it. Don't just water right at the base of it. After it's been established for about 12 months, you really don't have to water these a whole lot if you're in an area that gets regular rainfall. If you planted it in a woodland space and there's a lot of tree or other root competition, you may want to check on it more frequently during the summer because the existing trees or mature trees are very, very good at stealing water from your smaller growing ornamental shrubs. Camellias are acid-loving plants, and any fertilizer for acid-loving plants would be ideal for these. Only fertilize your camellias in the spring after they've finished blooming, regardless if it's a Sasanqua, this fall blooming or early winter blooming variety, or Camellia japonicas, the ones that bloom in the later winter or early spring. Wait till they're finished blooming. It's probably warm enough at that point. You can use a slow-release Azalea Camellia rhododendron fertilizer. You can find it in most garden centers just that one time. That way it'll run out about midsummer and allow the plant to just kind of naturally go to sleep. In terms of pruning camellias, like I said, they're extremely slow growing. They don't really require a lot of pruning, but if you're trying to keep the thing 6 to 8 feet tall rather than 10 to 15 feet tall, you will have to prune on it occasionally. Once they're established, once they've been in the ground for a lot of years, you can probably take a third off of one of these at one time. The best time to do that would be the same time you're fertilizing it in the spring and just off with its head at that time. It's going to take you're probably going to lose some flowers that year, but it's best if you're trying to keep it, let's say you're trying to keep it 6 feet, get it down to 5 feet. And that way you'll have a couple seasons where you're not having to do it constantly and it won't cost you flowers every year. In terms of pests on camellias, they do get T-scale. It's a insect that attaches itself to the back of the leaves, typically on the older growth. You can pull a leaf off near the bottom and flip it over and see them attached to it. It really don't bother me at all. I almost always have some T-scale on my camellias in my ground. I just don't worry about it. There are chemical controls and we can use horticultural oil as an organic control that can be sprayed on them in the wintertime, and that will help. Like I say, I just don't worry about it. In the nursery, obviously they're being sprayed because you can't send things out with insects on them, so they are being controlled there. But once you have it at your house in the ground, it's just not something I would worry about really. We don't get a lot of chewing insects on camellias. That's typically not that big of a deal. They are susceptible to root rot. And if you plant this plant and plant it flush and over mulch it and over water it, you're gonna end up with root rot on it at some point. Really the best camellias I see are ones that are on old farmhouses where they haven't been watered or really had a lot of maintenance done to them. They're just kind of ignored. The other issue you may have on camellias is if you have deer grazing in your yard. Deer like camellias almost as much as we do, and they will definitely eat this plant to the ground if given the opportunity. So if you have deer issues, I would definitely use this thing only as a foundation plant, or it may not be a plant that's for you. So what are you waiting for? Even you can plant the low maintenance, beautiful fall and winter flowering Pink Snow Sasanqua Camellia. Thank you for watching my video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also comment below with any questions you have about camellias. Thanks again.